Hello, today will be a story about sneaky cheating. Paulina felt like a princess from a fairy tale. She still could not understand how she fell in love with the most influential and richest man in the country. Basking now under the hot morning sun near the ocean shore, where their honeymoon took place, Paulina thought about the fact that finally fate had rewarded her for all the suffering that the girl had gone through in childhood. Paulina was born as the desired child in the family 23 years ago. Her mother worked as a junior nurse at a local hospital. Dad worked as a loader in a grocery store not far from home. The family had its own one-room apartment. At first, everything was probably good. The young parents were very happy about the birth of their daughter. But when the girl began to grow up, she already needed more and more things that her parents could not afford, since both of them had small salaries. When the girl was in the 6th grade, her mother was laid off from work. In the future, she did not work anywhere because there were almost no vacancies in their small town. They had to live even more economically. Later, probably 2 years later, Paulina's father began to drink heavily. He was so sick of such a life, such poverty, that he began to hide from real life behind a bottle of cheap vodka. But he didn't even try to change something in his life. Therefore, after some time, from a hardworking man, Paulina's father turned into an ordinary alcoholic. Scandals were not uncommon at home. And when the girl was 15 years old, her mother also started drinking alcohol in the company of her father. The worst period of Paulina's life began. Now she had to cook food for herself, wash her old clothes, because her parents did not have enough time for their daughter due to constant partying. It turned out that it was even worse when they didn't show up at home for several days, not showing any interest in their daughter. And it was much more difficult for her when, sometimes in the middle of the night, her parents came home, often accompanied by unknown and dirty men. One night, one of them began to harass the girl. She still remembers how strongly he smelled of alcohol and how few teeth he had. Paulina managed to escape from the house and spent the night outside, dreaming of a better and happier future. As time went on, she spent more and more nights on the street, trying to escape from her parents' drunkenness, fights, and scandals. Finally, Paulina waited until the end of school, but she did not attend her graduation. She couldn't afford a dress or a seat at the festive table. She stood hidden behind a tree, watching her classmates in their fancy outfits, who are surrounded by their parents and relatives. And Paulina's parents, it seemed, did not even notice that their daughter had finished school. At that time, Paulina dreamed most of all that she would certainly cure her mother and father of alcohol addiction and regain their attention, care, and love. After a difficult summer, when the girl was already forced to work part-time, Paulina entered a regular free college. Now she had a room in a dormitory where 2 other girls lived, and finally she could sleep peacefully all night without being afraid of the terrible visits of unknown drunkards. The girl received a scholarship, although it was not a lot of money, but she could already afford to buy something from clothes once a month. Those were happier days for her. It was sad that everything remained unchanged at her home. When Paulina came to visit her parents, it sometimes happened that they did not notice her. It was very offensive and unbearable. The girl visited her home once every 2 months anyway. Which already in the 2nd year of study, Paulina met Yevgeny. It was love at first sight. The girl received from the boy everything she lacked, care, attention, and love. And how she rejoiced at the first gift from Yevgeny, it was perfume. No one had ever given her such a gift. And the guy was very impressed by the reaction of his beloved girl to his gift. She burst into tears so much that Yevgeny barely calmed her down. Her feelings were sincere and tender. In the future, the guy tried to please the girl more with pleasant surprises. His parents lived in the village, worked a lot, and kept a large farm. Yevgeny grew up to be a hardworking, honest, courageous, and handsome boy. When the girl first came with Yevgeny to visit his parents, she liked them very much. His mother often hugged her son or stroked his head as she passed by on her errands. It was so cute that the girl could have cried. They also really liked Paulina. She tried to please them by getting out of bed early and helping with the household. Most of all, the girl liked to cook something in the big kitchen with Yevgeny's mother. They talked about a lot. The woman was very sorry for Paulina, so she tried to give her at least some part of her mother's love. The lovers graduated from college. They decided to take their time with the wedding. Both believed that true love is a feeling, not a stamp in a passport. Paulina and Yevgeny decided to stay in the city, find a job, and earn extra money for their own home, in which they will build their family life. Yevgeny quickly found a job at a car repair shop, where he began to earn a good salary. and Paulina spent almost a month looking for a workplace with a decent salary. Then she got a call from her former roommate in the student dormitory, with whom they had become friends back then and continued to communicate. It was she who suggested that Paulina go to the same nightclub together to get a job as a waitress there. As a waitress at the restaurant, Paulina's friend learned about the job openings from her boyfriend, who had been working there as a bartender for some time. Yevgeny didn't like the idea at first. He was hesitant about working all night in a place where many men were looking for young girls to have fun. However, Paulina reassured her boyfriend that she only loved him and that she would help him achieve their shared dream of buying an apartment faster by working there. Eventually, Yevgeny agreed, trusting his girlfriend completely, but he still had some uneasy feelings about it. The next morning, Paulina and her friend Vera went for an internship. They were taught all the details and nuances of the job for several days. A week later, Paulina was officially hired. It was challenging for her to adjust to working at night, but the high salary and generous tips from clients made it worth it. After a month, Paulina got used to the fast-paced lifestyle. The only downside was that she and Yevgeny could only see each other for a few hours a day. However, Paulina reassured herself that it was only temporary and that she would find a more suitable job once they had their own home. In the evenings, she would rush to work again. That day, she had a strange feeling. Paulina served a table that night with 5 serious-looking men who seemed to be having a business meeting rather than seeking entertainment. One of the men caught her attention as he watched her with interest. A few hours later, the men left the club, and half an hour later, the man who had been watching Paulina returned alone. His name was Alexander, and he was 52 years old and divorced. He was a well-known and respected businessman, one of the wealthiest in the country. At first, he couldn't understand why he was drawn to this young girl. Perhaps it was her natural beauty, which she didn't need to enhance with makeup, or her wonderful figure. Among his acquaintances, everyone seemed to have plastic surgery and frequent visits to cosmetic salons, turning them into plastic dolls. This girl, however, caught his attention at first sight, and he decided to make her his wife. Paulina was surprised when Alexander took her hand and asked her to sit next to him while she was taking his order. They met, and he gave her expensive diamond earrings. Paulina initially refused the gift, but Alexander had a way of persuading people to do what he wanted. He said it was time for him to leave, but they would see each other again soon, because he might have something important to discuss with her. Because he must have fallen in love. And he left, and Paulina could not believe that this was all true. She looked at the earrings enthusiastically, and then suddenly remembered that she would have to explain to Yevgeny where she got them from. A few days later, Alexander presented her with a luxurious engagement ring, saying that he liked her so much that he already wanted to marry her. Paulina was amazed and shocked, but pleasantly so. Without giving her even a small chance to refuse, the man took her, so enchanted, by the hand and led her to his car. As they drove to his luxurious estate, Paulina said that she had a boyfriend whom she loved. But Alexander replied that it was all unimportant. He already sent one of his assistants to Yevgeny's home to explain to him that he no longer has a girlfriend. Now remembering her past life, it was considered to Paulina as a kind of nightmare. The girl was happy that she would now be able to live luxuriously and happily. Alexander fulfilled all her wishes, gave her expensive gifts, and Paulina was very grateful to him for their meeting. Sometimes, however, she remembered Yevgeny, but the girl tried to push these memories away from her because she felt like a vile and treacherous bitch. Years passed. Paulina still enjoyed a luxurious, happy life. But now she has a great desire to experience all the joys of motherhood. But Alexander was categorically against it. The man already had a son from his first marriage, and he said he did not need more children. But after the refusal, Paulina's desire to become a mother only increased. But she also began to remember her Yevgeny more and more often. She realized now that she still loved him. And probably, those feelings made her the happiest girl in the world. She would very much like to look at him, even from afar. Paulina felt that she missed him very much. A few days later, the girl drove up to the house where she lived with Yevgeny. She still kept the key to the apartment, but suddenly the entrance door opened and Eugene came out. Paulina caught her breath from the memories of her first love. She got out of the car. Yevgeny recognized his beloved only when he came closer. Hey, struck by the unexpected meeting, stopped. Former lovers looked at each other in silence. Only in Yevgeny's eyes, there was so much pain that Paulina herself became unbearably painful. The girl suggested Yevgeny to talk in the car. She was surprised when the boy agreed, because she expected him to send her as far away from him as possible, and she deserved it. They drove out of town and Paulina stopped the car on the bank of the river. She burst into tears and asked for forgiveness from her lover. She admitted that she still loves him, and that she is a real scoundrel who was seduced by wealth. Suddenly, Yeon gently kissed the girl on the cheek. He loved her so much that he agreed to forget all those sleepless nights, all the pain that tormented him throughout the year. The lovers felt a strong passion for each other, and, forgetting everything in the world, engaged in love. When Paulina brought Yevgeny to their apartment, she promised that she would come up with something to leave her husband and be together again. She drove home happy with her love for Yevgeny and did not even imagine that Alexander already knew everything about her betrayal. She had no idea that she was under constant surveillance from day one. A video camera was installed in her car, so her husband saw with his own eyes the betrayal of his young wife. And Alexander felt only anger and rage. What was this girl missing? He gave her such a luxurious life that not everyone can even imagine. And she cheated on him with some common man at the first opportunity. But Alexander will make her pay for what she did. When the man met Paulina at the doorstep, he gently smiled at her and said he had an unusual surprise for her. He took her to the forest, where the woman saw several of her husband's bodyguards. Behind them stood someone with a bag over his head and a rope around his neck, the other end of which was tied to a tree branch. When the bag was removed from the stranger's head, Paulina was horrified to recognize her beloved Yevgeny. And Alexander, holding her tightly, said that now she will see how he punishes those who try to steal from him. Paulina screamed frantically when a chair was knocked out from under Yevgeny's feet. When her lover died, she fainted from grief. The girl came to her senses in a dirty shed. She looked around in surprise, not understanding why she was there. A sharp pain filled her insides, and she cried out in despair. It was at this moment that Alexander entered, smiling cheerfully. He told her that he had learned everything about her betrayal, and now she will feel only a small part of his revenge. After these words, several men entered, one of whom forcefully inserted something unknown into her hand. Alexander explained that in a few months, she will be ready to do anything to get the next dose of the drug. A few months later, Paulina was in a dirty apartment with equally dirty drug addicts. But it was all in vain. Only sometimes did some memories of her once luxurious life appear in her mind. But now Paulina no longer understood whose life it was. Her main dream was to get money for another dose by any means necessary. She was left without loved ones, without her favorite things, without anything. All because she repeatedly betrayed her loved ones. Dear listeners, your support is very important to us. If you like our story, please like, comment, and share. Comment and subscribe. It's very motivating for us. We need your feedback to improve our content.